Hello, and welcome to my video series, Grounded Apologetics for Teens, where we prepare to seize every opportunity, demolish opposition, and answer everyone. I'm Abbie Holman, and I'm so glad you're watching. Last episode, we briefly examined how to think critically about Christianity by knowing why you believe what you believe. Today, we're going to dive into that more deeply by exploring what God's Word has to say about evangelism and apologetics. First, the Bible commands us to tell others about the gospel. In Matthew 28, 18 through 20, Jesus gives the church instructions on how to make disciples. You don't need to wait until you go on a missions trip or a service project to share your faith with others. You don't need to wait until you're older, and you don't even need to wait until you feel like it. God has already told you to tell others about Jesus, and He's already told you how. Second, the Bible also instructs us to have strong reasoning backing our convictions. Jude 1:3 tells us to contend for the faith entrusted to us. 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 describes how believers are to refute arguments against God. Acts 17:2-4 gives us just one example of how the early church reasoned logically with unbelievers to make their case. This doesn't mean that everyone is required to take an apologetics class or study theology. It does mean that we have an obligation to think critically about our faith and provide reasons for believing it. My key verse for this series is Colossians 4:5-6, which says, "Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." Now, I know there was a lot packed into that passage, so let's break it down into a few practical tips. Tip number 1, always be prepared. This is why we study apologetics, why we read and refute counter-arguments, so that we will be able to give at least a basic response to anyone we might engage with. We equip ourselves to make the most of every opportunity. Number 2, cling to the truth. Use wisdom in every encounter so you will not waver or cave to opposition. Let the salt of faith preserve the truth in your message. And pray and ask God for wisdom ahead of time if you feel you are not confident in this area. And lastly, number 3, reason with grace. Though this is challenging, the most effective way to approach unbelievers is through loving, gracious humility. Don't try to sound smart, and certainly don't be arrogant. Your job is to balance truth and grace. And this is an incredibly hard balance to achieve. But, as Pastor Chris Hodges put it, truth without grace is mean. Grace without truth is meaningless. To conclude, we are instructed not only to share our faith, but to be prepared for whatever opposition may arise. The best way to do this is to study the evidence behind our convictions and know how to answer everyone who may challenge the gospel. In every encounter, we are to be fully prepared, cling to the truth, and reason with grace. This will strengthen our own faith, and it may even bring someone else to Christ as well. Thanks for watching.